July 7th was the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy IX. We didn't get any crazy announcements, but considering it is my favorite game of all time, I wanted to dive deep into it for probably the 15th time in my life. Considering the Nintendo Switch version of the game has little to no differences on Switch 2, we're going to dive into this game on the Steam Deck, just as I did on the 9th for almost 12 hours straight. Let's get right into it. Here is how I've gotten Final Fantasy IX with and without mods to run on the original Steam Deck. For a brief summary, this is the 9th mainline entry of the Final Fantasy RPG series. Originally released for the PlayStation 1 in the year 2000, it was made as a love letter to all previous games of the series up to that point, combining mechanics and elements from the more recent Final Fantasy 7 and 8 with the classic themes and environments of 1 through 6. As far as running this on the Steam Deck, we're going to dive into performance and features of this game both when running it normally and when running it with the Memoria Patcher mods, an incredibly easy way to mod the game and customize it. By default, it will launch and run fine despite that little yellow exclamation mark by Steam Deck Compatibility. You do need to run it through a launcher though, which has you choosing a resolution and starting the game. This is the same version of 9 that the Switch and other consoles got, meaning it has built-in cheats for things like max level, no encounters, speed up mode, and max damage for everything you can toggle by pausing and hitting the L, R, L2, or R2 trigger buttons. We also have detailed and touched up character models and the cropped 4:3 ratio with those borders on the sides that you can't really get rid of. Though the pre-rendered backgrounds weren't really touched up at all, leaving them very blurry, especially compared to the nice looking characters. Playing it like this will be fine on the Steam Deck. Like with Final Fantasy VII, the frame rates are all fixed and set in stone. Moving around dungeons will run 30 FPS, while FMV movies, battle, and the world map will all run at 15 FPS. With it like this, I never had any issues on the Steam Deck as far as crashing or freezing, outside of them just being the low frame rates they are. The load times are also pretty normal. Unlike the Switch version, which takes upward of 12 seconds to load into a battle arena, something the Switch 2 oddly does not improve at all. This version only takes about 5 seconds to load into a battle, the same as the mobile port. This works well, though the backgrounds not being updated at all does make it look strange. But thankfully, we have options on the Steam Deck that we do not have on consoles. In other words, mods. So let's go into how you mod Final Fantasy IX on the Steam Deck, as it's an extremely simple process. First, you need to go into desktop mode on the Steam Deck and download the Memoria Patcher exe file, which is available on GitHub. I'll put the link of that into the comments below. Once you have that downloaded, navigate to the local files for Final Fantasy IX through Steam, copy-paste that Memoria exe file into that folder, and then right-click the file and add it to Steam as a non-Steam game. After you launch Memoria.exe through Steam, it will take a moment and run through its process, and then you're done. Go back to gaming mode on the Steam Deck and launch Final Fantasy IX to have its launcher be transformed into the Memoria Launcher. This gives you a lot of different things to change. You can toggle PS1 fonts and button icons, frame rates from the default all the way up to 60, 90, and 120, add shader enhancements, new battle modes, a bunch of extra cheats like 100% steal rate, and being able to manually toggle trance mode. But most importantly is the mod manager, listing mods that you can install directly within the game's launcher. You just select it, hit install, and it does the work for you. With these, you can do a lot of different things, like adding a ton of NPC and guest characters to the playable roster, tweak XP, gil, and AP rewards, as well as installing the Moguri 9.0 mod. Moguri alone is why you want to mod this game on Steam Deck. It's basically a Final Fantasy IX version of the Resident Evil HD projects, enhancing and making all of those blurry backgrounds crisp, clean, and beautiful to match the better character models. It's a complete world of difference when you're used to looking at the game like this with character models that look good and all of those blurry backgrounds, to this where everything looks good. There are two things here that I don't really like about this mod. Not every scene is widescreen and got rid of the borders. You'll often be wandering around an area with everything taking up full screen, and suddenly you'll walk into a cutscene and it's 4:3 again. And that's outside of the FMV computer graphics movies. My other nitpick is how it affects the look of Vivi and the other black mages. All of the character models now have a shiny look to them, so you can actually see the shape and edges of the black mages' faces. I feel this looks a lot better when it looks more like a black void with yellow eyes than having a tangible looking shape. But with these mods, you can also enhance the frame rate. So let's go into that as well. Do you want Final Fantasy IX that runs at 60 FPS? You can get that with movement, world map, pretty much everything outside of FMVs running at a silky smooth 60 frames per second. However, I actually would not recommend you enhancing the frame rate at all past the default fixed values. As I discovered when I did my live stream, the 60 FPS option makes everything look gorgeous and perfect except for two things. First, when you have characters moving on screen with their speech bubbles moving with them, it causes weird motion blur that makes those speech bubbles hard to read. More importantly are battle effects. Final Fantasy IX was never meant to be played at 60 frames per second, and every time you use a skill or spell that has those special little wind-up animations, it really shows where the effect will play at 15 FPS while the rest of the game runs at 60, creating an extremely jarring experience. The problem here is that the animations don't have enough frames for the game to properly speed them up to 60. As a result, they will always run at a fraction of the rest of the game if you boost the frame rate. Even when you have the whole game set at 30 FPS, it still looks jarring when the animations are half of that. So what I suggest you do is use the Moguri mod to enhance the visuals, as well as installing the now separate Moguri 30 FPS FMV mod to bring those up to a smoother 30 FPS. Do this and just keep the frame rates at their default values of 30 in exploring and 15 everywhere else. 15 is quite low, and it's going to look a little weird when you're running around the world map if you haven't played this game before, but it's just so jarring and bothersome to constantly see 60 FPS tank down to 15 the moment you use anything outside of just physical attacks in battle. Now on the bright side, you get a much better looking Final Fantasy IX. Having the enhanced visuals and backgrounds looks phenomenal in comparison, and really the kind of look that we should have gotten in the modern port of the game, instead of having all of those blurry backgrounds. But on the downside, this mod will make the game a bit less stable. Across my 12-hour stream, we had the game freeze up or crash back to the Steam Deck's UI over half a dozen different times in different areas. I've looked into it, and it seems to always happen during battle animations, be it from party members or enemies. One time it was from using a remedy, and another time it was Freya's jump ability during the Clara section of the game. And earlier on, we had it happen during the Black Waltz number 3 fight multiple times in a row. The problem is that it was never from the same animation. I have never been able to recreate these crashes. Even when Black Waltz 3 crashed twice in a row, it was never the same animation. On the bright side, I found this to be a non-issue because of the autosave mechanic that is built into not only the Steam version of the game, but the Memoria mod itself. Every time you enter a new scene or a new room, the game autosaves. So when it crashes and you have to relaunch, if you hit continue on the title screen instead of load game, it'll just pick up where you left off. You might have to restart the fight you were on or redo a small scene, but you won't lose a lot of progress. I mean, sure, it's unfortunate that the game crashed on me as much as it did, equating to about once every 2 hours, but it's very manageable because of autosave. That's all I have for performance. So when it comes to battery life, Final Fantasy IX averages out to about 4 hours total on the original Steam Deck model, and that's even with using mods. That's all I have to say, so as we wrap this up, should Steam Deck users play Final Fantasy IX on Valve's handheld? I would say that's still a yes. It doesn't have the longer load times of the Switch release, and it's incredibly easy to mod the game with visuals, extra characters, and tons more ways to customize and change the experience. While it's unfortunate that the Moguri mod destabilizes the game, it only crashes every couple of hours, and the autosave this game uses makes all of those crashes not really mean much when you barely have to redo anything. And that's all I have for you today. I'll be back soon with more Steam Deck performance and reviews. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.